What's going on, Coach D? We got our special guest. Introduce him.
So, ladies and gentlemen, Liam Anderson is with us today. Former player of mine, went on to Holy Cross and is now currently with the Indianapolis Colts and looking to make a name for himself. So, Liam, thanks. I appreciate you coming on, buddy.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, it's exciting. I mean, we always talk about on this podcast everything to do with prospects and recruiting and like the different things, from techniques and drills and stuff that we think guys should be doing and kind of like the myths of what we see out there to, things that are in the prospect world and kids going through the recruiting process. And I mean, that's obviously the main thing to try and help young guys see someone like yourself and hey, what did he do that helped him to get where he is? So we're really glad to have you on. And I mean, the first question is obviously, kind of a background for everyone who may not know. He played at Mount Olive High School, led them to the very brink of the state championship. I won't rehash that because Coach D talks about it all the time. So, but obviously led a program. You were the quarterback there, and I think that's something we should talk about because a lot of kids play quarterback and they think that's where they have to play in college, and you end up playing linebacker in college, and now is on to the NFL, and making those dreams come true, and fighting every day for to continue to compete and be an NFL player. Tell everybody a little bit about kind of your journey.
Yeah, so I'd say it's a pretty unique one. It's not like a typical football story. I considered myself like a baseball player first up until like my senior year in high school. I had we didn't have the best of the seasons my junior year. But like I showed some flashes on tape, and that's when like colleges started to notice a little bit. And then my senior year, we had a really good off season. We really bought into the program and bought into each other and all the hard work. And we kind of had a breakout year. Obviously, you said like we came up short in the state final, but that's what kind of put me on the map as a prospect. Particularly as a quarterback, I thought myself up first. But when schools started reaching out and they said, we like you at safety, I didn't really care about like what position I was going to be playing. I just love football. And so for me, it was just deciding the best, situation, the best school for me in terms of what I was prioritizing at that time, which was, great football and then just quality of academics. And so came down to a couple schools, but in the end, Holy Cross was the best decision for me. They wanted me to go in and play safety. So my freshman year, I went in there, and it seemed like they kind of had a plan of me all along moving to linebacker because it wasn't long before I got moved into that room. And I was, a skinny buck, 190 pounds, and I quickly had to put on some weight. But it was just, for the love of the game. I didn't really care what position I played. And I'm thankful for, Mount Olive for putting me in the position to be able to be recruited by them. I think a lot of it had to deal with that I played multiple sports and not just I was, like a quarterback first and foremost, and then I also happened to play safety. The reason why I got recruited there was because, they saw my athleticism on defense. As well as, other sports that I played. And so that's what kind of got my foot in the door. And then from there, the rest is history in terms of me getting to play linebacker there.
Right, which is something we talk about all the time, right? And being that, guys, hey, I want to be just a football player. I'm going to do this in the offseason. I'm going to do that. Liam, you were the rare full-blown three-sport athlete where, quarterback for football, point guard, basketball, shortstop, baseball, where your off-seasons weren't off-seasons. You were constantly in another sport. And it's something that we deal with a lot of the guys that we have that maybe aren't hey, I'm going to stay one sport only. I think your path, I don't know if you'd be in the same situation had you only done one sport.
Yeah, definitely not. And I think one other thing I would say is like when I went to college too, like a lot of my teammates and guys in my classes are from Florida or Texas, where all they have is, football and another sport. You can't do three. And it's like in that third season, they're, lifting or running for football. So I think that was one area where, like, when I entered in my freshman year, I was like a little behind the eight ball in terms of lifting, but like it wasn't long because I was just, so determined to catch up with everybody else. It wasn't long for me to catch up, but I feel like I had experience in for basketball, for footwork, or, I feel like a lot of man coverage techniques you get from playing one-on-one basketball and covering somebody in basketball, or if you're getting a release off the line and you're a gunner on punt, that's put a basketball in your hands. It's the same footwork. So there's a lot of carryovers from, certain sports that carry over to football. And it's you wouldn't get those skills if you didn't play other sports. So I feel like that's a huge advantage at the end of the day.
Well, that's the thing that I see the theme over and over again, especially guys that go to higher and higher levels, is that the three-sport athlete has a tremendous amount of success. I actually just saw something the other day. It was interesting that you said that baseball, up until basically your senior year, you really thought of baseball as your main sport.
Yeah.
I saw a big thing that the majority of guys that end up being college football players thought another sport was gonna be their main sport, and but basically the theme was that they were multi-sport athletes, right? And they had another skill set that really translated over to football. And I think that I think playing basketball and baseball, that gives you two different types of competition, right? Too, so you're still competing, but it's a different type of competition, different strategy. It's different skill sets you need to have that I think translate over into football. But I'd love to know, because obviously you're a quarterback, and now you start out as a defensive back and quickly moved to linebacker. What did playing quarterback? How did that help you when it came to transitioning to playing linebacker and defense at the college level?
Yeah. So what I tell people is, obviously we only got so complicated in our offensive scheme at Mount Olive for quarterback, simple zone reads, one high, two high safeties, and then you kind of know what coverage you're getting or what matchups you like, what routes you like versus man. But from the flip side of that, as a linebacker, when we were dropping in zone coverage and I got a certain route, in front of me, I'm knowing that, the quarterback's probably wanting me to take that drag up there so he can hit the dig behind me, so little things like that in zone coverage that gave me an advantage. I understood, route concepts, what the quarterback's trying to do, what their offense is trying to attack. Little things like that, especially in in the college level, you get to RPO world, so much more than high school. So I understood what he was reading. But, in another world, I know that, when the quarterbacks get pressure in his face, he's going to be, hesitant to let go of the ball sometimes or stuff like that. So it gave me an advantage in just understanding what the quarterback's thinking, what, passing concepts they could be trying to do versus our particular style of defense. We were a quarters team, so I know what kind of route concepts are going to be able to beat that. So it was pretty much in the zone passing games where I got my advantage.
It's really, really interesting that you see, and you probably have seen this being a quarterback, but you were very humble because you played multiple sports. But I see today so many quarterbacks that they're so locked in. I have to play quarterback in college, and that's the only and they missed the boat because the skill sets of quarterback lends you to play any position basically on defense other than interior defensive line.
Yeah, right.
Other than D tackle, those are big, huge boys. But you could play tight end, you could play wide receiver. Some guys who are shorter quarterbacks, running quarterbacks, can play running back at the college level. But I see so many of these guys because of like the 7-on-7 circuit. They're all locked in. Like, if I don't play quarterback at college, like, what do I do?
No.
Like,
Yeah.
what advice would you give quarterbacks as they're going through this whole entire process?
I would probably just say stay open-minded. I mean, if you really love football and if you really want to play, you got to realize that in college football, there's only one quarterback that plays on the field. And, a very, select few times you'll get a 2-quarterback system, but even then the reps are very limited. So if you want to play as much as possible, and if you want to really utilize all of your athleticism, then you got to be open-minded to play other positions. And that's going to ultimately get you on the field faster.
Very cool.
Right. And I think that's something too, Liam. Like, you understand, like, I can remember working with you as just a puppy when you had just come to town and you were a sophomore and you were kind of the next like guy that was going to be it. And your first varsity start was at safety,
Yeah.
Like, we got you on the field as soon as we could in a position like that, and knowing, hey, eventually he's going to be this quarterback, but he's a competitor and an overall athlete, where now let's get him on the field to do this. And then, coming down to senior year, it's like, yeah, he's the quarterback, but I'll tell you what, buddy, your best game, that championship game, you had a phenomenal game on the defensive side of the ball. And that was really where I think you personally noticed, like, hey, I think safety might be, that place for me. Now, I was pushing for it forever because it's like, hey,
right,
dude,
yeah, you're a safety guy.
I'm like, you're going to be a safety in college. You're going to go in there and whatever, and you're going to be a safety for probably 5 days, and then they're moving you down into the box. And then you got on that whole, all right, now I need to prepare to play safety at this, or to play linebacker at this level. That's where you really took the off-season world, right? You bulked up, right? You came back. You were on that college weight room program, that college meal plan. And now you fit yourself. And I believe originally you started as an outside backer and then moved to the interior, correct?
Yeah.
So just that overall, right? Like, just playing that stuff and doing that, like, you were open-minded about it. I want to get on the field. Some guys, like Coach was saying, we had with these guys, like, I'm a quarterback only. It's like, okay, well, all right. Even guys that, look, we run these camps and we got 80 receivers and 15 DBs. Nobody even wants to go play DB. It's like, my man, use your skills, your athleticism, and embrace it. But I think it's a kudo to you and kind of these other guys that if you want to be at this high level, you have to not only embrace it, but you also have to have a passion and love it to a point where I don't care where I'm at as long as I'm on there.
I feel like that's what separates the guys that go to college football and then the guys that play at college football, is the ones that really love it and will just buy in. Because as a freshman, pretty much the only way you're going to play is special teams, and everybody going into college football never played special teams in high school, so it's like you got to buy in and you have to like just try to develop yourself as an overall football player rather than just one position. And especially in the position that I'm in right now, like, it's kind of like a full like cycle. I'm a special teams guy in the NFL. That's what I do. And it's like, if I didn't have those years of college, and especially my freshman and sophomore and even my junior year of just really being like a special teams guru type of guy, like, I wouldn't be in the position where I am today. And it's like that special teams experience and the love of football that really like carries you and will take you very far in football.
Coach D has been a huge advocate since you were in high school. I remember him talking about you because I was the year before you guys went to the championship. I was a coach. I was an assistant at Old Japan, and so we lost the year before in overtime to Riverdale, and then you guys had that game. But he was always a huge advocate for you, even back then. He would say, I have this quarterback. I think he's a defensive back at college. We just got to find a spot for him. I remember this all the time. And then when you got into Holy Cross, you were playing and you were starting fairly early in your career. He was he's like, I think he can be a pro. I know it's FCS, but obviously Holy Cross always has a great reputation.
Mhm.
in the football world. And when you're good area there in Massachusetts, where New England Patriots are nearby, so that begins to give you one scouting group that will always know what you're doing. It's actually an advantage at the
Yeah.
pro level being in near a major city, because those guys are always reading about people in the paper and stuff. So, and the
Mhm.
reason why I say that is because I was an NFL agent for 6 years, and so I'm curious about this process for yourself. What it was like. Who's the agent that represents you? Are you still with whoever that
Yeah,
is?
Matt Glaus is his name.
Okay. So when you went with Matt, like what was the process for you, right? Coming from FCS, everybody thinks, oh, I got to go to these big, huge, right,
No.
to have a chance in the NFL. So tell a little bit about your process. Because when I was an agent, I used to represent players like yourself, guys that really had a chance to make it, but either went to a big school and they were like a big tight end that didn't get the ball thrown to them that much,
Yeah.
or like had different attributes, right? But you thought they
Mhm.
could make it. And so tell a little bit about what your process was like for you. Like, when did you first realize that you had a chance to be able
Yeah.
to get in there? And then what was the process for you draft wise, everything like that, free agent?
Yeah. So I really didn't. If you would have told me I would have been in the NFL my freshman year, I would have told you you're crazy. Like the whole my whole like underclassmen years, I was really just working as hard as possible, trying to make an impact on my team, and then just see what happens. And then I feel like I really had an idea that I could play at the next level was probably after the COVID season, um, 2020, 2021 season. Um,
Right,
just
because you
because
guys didn't play that year, right? Like you had that
we
COVID
had
year,
like
you
this,
were
we had
literally
like
shut down.
this,
You just took classes, came back to town, I believe, right, and helped coach the high school team, right?
yeah, right. And we had a season after that in the spring, in which we played 4 games. And I think it was at that point where I knew I could play at the next level. Just because I was getting so much more confidence at linebacker. And that was the first time where I was playing not undersized, but like adequately sized as an inside linebacker. And I was getting a lot more confidence and understanding the scheme and making plays. Um, and I kind of just, at that point on, I was kind of just, my notch got turned up a little bit more, and I was taking football a little bit more seriously, watching more film, just honing my craft as much as I could, and really working a lot harder in the weight room. And then I had the decision after my senior year to like consider grad transferring potentially to an FBS school, like Power Five school, play linebacker, or stay another fifth year at Holy Cross. And the system just fit me so well, and I was doing a lot of things that would help elevate my status as a prospect, because that season I was before my fifth year, my senior year, I was playing cornerback, I was playing safety, I was playing D end, I was playing linebacker, outside linebacker, overhang. I was pretty much playing everything. And I had never had that fun playing football in a very long time. So like I decided to stay, and it was, probably one of the best decisions I've ever made, and came back. And we were fortunate to have another great year. And then from there, it kind of just took off, and it was a question of trying to find an agent that understood who I was as a prospect and as a player. And fortunately, Matt really, I feel like he's got a great, idea of what it takes for me to make it in the league. And he's had guys similar to me. So that's what I was looking for, is somebody who had other guys in the league who, had a similar path to me, small school, special teams type of guy. So it was a really no-brainer going with him. And then from there, it was just work as hard as possible for the combine and pro day. And from that point on, it was like 8 weeks training in Pittsburgh, come back, pro day, local days, and then draft day. It's kind of crazy how fast it moves, but it's really been, an amazing experience, and I'm definitely a better person from going through all of that.
What did you run your 40 in? I'm curious.
4.53.
That's excellent. We always say that 40 is I'm sure your agent told you the same thing, right? That's like,
yeah, it's the biggest thing.
It's the biggest thing. We say it all the time. It's like,
and that was something like we always knew you had good numbers, but it was, can he keep that speed increasing that size, right? Because I mean, listen, you can talk about Leo, talk about your weight a little bit. Like, you went into college at what and graduated at what?
Yeah, so I graduating high school, I was like 190 pounds. And then I go into Holy Cross, and they're like, we're moving you to linebacker. And I was like, okay, there's a lot more food on the plate now. And so I just was putting on as much weight as possible. And I think I played the next year at 215. After that, it was 220. And then I finished my college season at like 230, but my heaviest was like 234, 235. But now I'm sitting around 230. So it was like 40 pounds, which was like ridiculous to me at the time. But after you gain that weight, it's about turning it into good weight, getting rid of some body fat, putting on muscle, and then just keeping the same speed and getting faster at that same weight.
Well, I think what's really interesting and smart, I don't know if you did it on purpose or just it just worked out that way, but in high school, you just basically you played it. You didn't try to gain weight in high school.
No, I was just playing.
There wasn't any time. There wasn't any time really, because he would go from, and we're not talking like he was on the basketball team, right? We're like, no, he was a starter, right? Yeah, he wasn't on the baseball team. He was a start, right? So every season, and it's not so summer was really the only time where weight room lifting was a spot where we could focus on it with him. And look, and then you're getting at most a month maybe of hard work lifting. So what are you really going to get? And then in season, you're just trying to keep whatever was there. But for the type of player you were, you couldn't put on weight if we tried, even if we had you in that weight room all those time. I think that just embracing that in itself, knowing I'm going from this position to this position, and this is what I have to do to get there, right? Yeah. And this is the work I have to do, and now maintain it, and now dial it up even more now at the level you're at, where you're at, right?
Staying an athlete early on, right? Staying an athlete when you're young, being an athlete is the most important thing.
Right? Yeah. And you're also talking about the ultimate competitor, right? Chess, checkers, don't matter. Like walking down the hallway, Liam's got to be in the front, but he's not the guy that's he's going to do it. But that's it. I'm going to win. So that's where I think adds to it as well, is you got to be a competitor, man.
Yeah, 100%. We go into college and it's first day of camp, you're doing a J drop frontline kickoff return block on another guy who's trying to run through your face to show the coaches that he's got it. You know what I mean? So there's got to be a little switch turned on where it's okay, I got to lock in now. I got to compete. And then if you don't win, you're not going to play. So it's it's simple as that. You just got to win and compete in everything you do. And from that, you'll just elevate as a player.
Right, but we've seen some of that, right? And that's the ultimate adjustment is, right? because everybody is the dude on their high school team, right? And now you go to college and you're just another dude amongst dudes. So at what point does it for you say, you know what? I need to now kind of go and become something else, right? And kind of go from there.
Absolutely.
We lose him? I can't believe he ran a 4.5.
That's incredible. Did we lose him?
I think we lost him maybe, but I don't know. It looks like he'll be back. But think about it, right? And listen, and this is something too, because it's kind of cool for you because you were at that state semifinal game where this kid's playing quarterback, right? So you've seen him literally go through this whole process. And with our guys, we talk about this all the time. You gotta love the sport, right? You can just see that these guys and he himself, the passion for it, loving football, right? Doing all that stuff. That's the difference, You're good, buddy.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, you're good.
Technology, dude. Technology. No matter what.
Never fails. We have something it all the time.
Always got
to be a Derek all the time. Derek will be talking to me and I'll be gone.
But we just
Always
don't
gotta be
stop, right? So
prepared.
we just keep talking, and it's like 5 minutes before we even realize one of us is like missing in it. But yeah, man, listen, the whole thing, like I think you embracing that process of being a competitor and also now taking it to another level once you're just there among the others, right? Because like you said, those first couple years, I mean, look, you could have easily gotten discouraged with just the position change in general, right? You could have just said, you know what, this isn't for me. I'm just going to play, I'm going to go to school, whatever. But no, you embraced the competition aspect of it and said, you know what, no, I'm going to get better. I'm going to continue to improve. I'm going to buy my time. And, hey, if I'm going to only be on kick return, well, I'm going to be the best player on kick return, right?
That's
or I'm going to be a
exactly what it
gunner.
was.
I got to go do it, So
It was like freshman year camp. I mean, everybody who's gone through college football understands that freshman year camp is, a different beast. And you walk in there, we went, and this was before any sort of like rules from the NCAA. I think we went like 18 days in a row of like full practices. So it's like you figure out very quick if football is for you or not. And if you decide that it's not, you're just going to be miserable. So, you got to buy in. And buying in at that time, I was a quarterback. I had no idea what I was doing on defense. I thought I was terrible at football. I was like, I couldn't learn anything. I was like, wow, this is very hard. But what did I do? I just, I said, okay, I can buy into frontline, KOR. That's something that doesn't take much to learn about. Or I can run down on kickoff with, your head on fire. That doesn't take, much to think about it either. So it was exactly what you said, just buying into those little roles and then trying to expand from there and just, get better as a player over time.
Well, your willingness to humble yourself. I mean, obviously for somebody, when you grow up in your town and you're the best athlete in the town and you could do all these different things, the willingness to humble yourself when you go to college and play. And I would say the first day that I walked in, to the locker room, I'm 6'1", and I walked in. I grew up in a small town, and much like where Derek grew up, I grew up at Saddlebrook High School, which is like a tiny Group 1, and I went to UConn scholarship there. I walked in there. I was always one of the, if not the tallest, one of the tallest people in my town. And I walked in, and you're around the offensive linemen, and they're all everybody's 6'5".
Yeah.
You're like, wait a minute. You get used to all of a sudden for 4 or 5 years, you are you're not the tallest person. You are now among the shorter people. So you're not much. Derek is like 5'8". But you're closer to the guys that are 5'8" than you are to those guys who are 6'5". You know what I mean? So
exactly. I wasn't the biggest. I wasn't the strongest. I wasn't the fastest. But you gotta find your own little niche of who you are as a player to fit in.
Absolutely. Awesome talking to you, Derek. You have any final thoughts before we let him go? Go relax.
No, I mean, listen, I think it's like you said, I mean, and you're talking about guys really, a lot of the guys we talk about get caught up in the, the Power 5 this, the FCS this, or scholarship this, listen, man, get your foot in the door, work hard, and good things will come, right? And I think, Liam, I couldn't be prouder, as a coach and all that stuff, but it's the other stuff too, just how you give back and you can talk to guys about it from your role and give them this is what it is, this is how you got to do it, and it'll all work out in the long run. Because look, at the end of the day, my man, you're living dreams right now, but you also got a hell of a degree from a hell of a university, so you always have that to fall back on.
Absolutely.
Yep.
We didn't even talk about that, as obviously at one of the top academic schools in the Northeast. So
right.
No,
I mean, listen, winner on and off the field
is there.
Yeah, I mean, and a winner on and off the field, right? I think you guys won in your 4 years there, how many Patriot League titles you have?
In my 5 years, we won four in a row, and they're about to win 5 right now. So it's just, a testament to the program they got going on right there, the culture that we built. And it was, just truly blessed to be a part of it. It was just so much fun winning like that. So it never gets old.
I appreciate it.
Massachusetts accent after 5 years there.
No chowder.
No, you're not talking chowder.
No, that's not me.
Worcester, right?
Boy, keep that jersey.
Holy
I
cow! How
love
do they say
Worcester,
it?
but
Worcester.
I will never get into that accent.
Yeah, boy.
They say
Keep that
wicked all the
Jersey.
time.
Keep that Jersey. That New Jersey. But listen, buddy, I really appreciate you coming on,
I
dropping
appreciate
some
you
knowledge
guys.
and some stuff for the guys that we're looking to help out and do things like that. And, you know, obviously, if you need anything, let us know, buddy. But continue the journey and you know, keep at it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys.
All right,
Appreciate
guys.
you,
All
bud.
right,
Talk
Liam.
soon.
Take it easy, bud.
All right. We'll see you.
All right,
Later, my man.
All right. All right, that was great. Great
Good
having
kid,
him
bro.
on.
This is a good dude. And I'm telling you, listen, what am I in the NFL? I'm a special teams guy. Why? Because he embraced the role and he's athletic, you know. I'm not just a quarterback. I can do other things, right? So I know we put, you know, guys push this, that. Listen, be open, be humble, learn everything. Because listen, you heard it in his. I didn't want to be that. I didn't want to do that. But he also, you know, he knew at the end of the day, like, hey, if I want to get to where I'm going to go, this is a path that I need to do it this way. So I'm going to do it, right? Like a very humble human being.
Yeah, the humbleness, that was like the overall, you know, so many times, and we deal with it in obviously in high school, a large basis over and over again. Quarterbacks are used to being the guy and all that kind of thing, and a lot of them have a hard time. The word is humbling themselves because their pride is so big as a quarterback.
I think that's what it is. I think it's a pride thing, right? Like, how do I? Because they feel like if I can't be the quarterback, then I'm not good. Like. Right? It's like I've failed. No, you were just better suited at another spot, right? So, All right, that didn't work out. All right, now let me go embrace this. I mean, think about it. He went from 190 pounds to 215 pounds to 220 to 234 to 230. I don't think people understand how much work that takes to do that. And then to run a 4.5 at 230.
So it's pretty incredible. I mean,
right. I mean,
that's flying, by the way. 4.53. I mean, that is flying.
And listen, and he wasn't. I don't know if to be honest, I don't know if he would have been. I don't know if he was a 4.5 guy in high school. You know what I mean? Because I don't think I really don't think he was. I mean, literally,
he was a baseball player. He probably didn't. Yeah, exactly.
When I talk, I mean, look, and it's not just him personally. It's like a lot of these guys that play 3 sports, right? You never full amount of time to really get in there and work out and do all that kind of stuff because you're doing something else. I mean, look, this was a guy too who he didn't really do 7-on-7s in the summer because he was playing in a baseball league, right? So like, you know, that was the whole thing about it. And it was like, Liam, like when you get to college and football is the only thing, just watch what's going to happen with that whole process in general. And then I'll never forget that phone call. I think it was day 5 of camp his freshman year. He was like, yeah, coach, I'm moving to linebacker. And I'm like, that's what we said was going to happen, you know? And like, you talk about him too, having an opportunity to transfer after his, you know, he graduated to play his grad year at a Power 5 school. And he said, no, this system fits what I do better, right? Let me use that to take the next step.
I think NFL teams, especially a guy that's a free agent guy like he, really, really look at that when he the word humble keeps coming to my mind. Like, it just obviously you know him really well, and I don't, right? So I'm listening to him talk, and as a coach, I'm like,
yeah, you drool.
Yeah, that's a kid you want.
He's a once in a lifetime kid that you have on your team because he checks every box. You know what do they always say, when your best player is your hardest worker, then you got something. You know what I'm saying? He's also a kid that if you ask anybody about him, there wouldn't be one bad thing said. You know what I mean? Like it's just across the board. You know, and he. I mean, look. That year when COVID and they shut down the program, he came home and rather than just sit around and do whatever, he went back to the high school and helped them coach their season. Right? While taking classes. Like, he doesn't even talk about that stuff. I mean, he's a 4-year academic All-American. He's got an MBA from Holy Cross, like on top of it. Like, he's sitting pretty. He doesn't have to be doing what he's doing, and I love it. He would never say it, but his quote to me was, Coach, I got one shot to be in the NFL. I'm going after it. And if it works, awesome. If it doesn't, I'll go do what I'm supposed to do, you know? So, but I just think his whole process where guys like everybody looks at it like, hey, you got to do this, you got to do that. Like, no, here's your example of a guy who, right, not a Power 5 school, went to college to play a position that, you know, he wasn't his position, and ultimately ends up, you know, I mean, listen, he didn't even step on the field on offense or defense in college until, you know, until he was a junior, right? So embracing the whole, I'm a special teams guy, I can play my role, and ultimately helping his team to, you know, 2 league titles, right? As a special teams guy only, embracing his roles. And ultimately,
I wrote down three things. You tell me, these were I wrote down the three things that came to mind when I thought of him. Humble was the first, open-minded, and love of the game. Like, he really talked
that passion.
Like, he was open-minded. He was willing to learn, to become better at wherever they were going to put him.
And listen, it was one of those things too. Like, he actually moved, and he doesn't go into this much, but because he was young when it happened. But he was born in Texas.
Okay.
So he was born in Texas, moved here. So when he came to high school, he was like the next whatever. And I can remember his freshman year, he had like a back injury, so he didn't really play. And as a sophomore, he came in, and it was like, we got to get this guy on the field somehow, shape, or form. We were an older team, right? So I'm like, give me him at safety, because he's athletic, he's long, he's going to be there eventually. Let's put him there. And you could see as a sophomore him start to embrace that. And he never thought of himself. That's the truth. He never thought of himself as a football guy. He was like, I'm going to college to play baseball. I'm going to do that. I'm going to have a long career throwing, doing all this kind of stuff. And then after his junior year, you know, and I think I can pinpoint it to a play where he pulled an RPO and he took off down the chute and he split 2 safeties as a junior, like for a 60-yard touchdown. I think that's the play where he was like, I might be able to play this sport, right? And then he built off his own confidence. He has his own fuel that fuels his fire, right? Like, he even talked about, hey, if I'm the first, you know, I know this guy across from me on kickoff is trying to run through my face to get on the field. So you know what? I have to stop it in order to get on the field myself, right? So competition, like, and that's the thing. You wrote down those things, right? I wrote down the same things, right? The open-mindedness thing, absolutely, right? Willing to play another position, willing to trust. Like, look, even when he's talking about his agent, right? Like, I looked for a guy who had guys like me before.
Smart. He's a smart guy. I mean, but the humble, I mean, and obviously he's a fierce competitor.
Brutal. Like, you don't want to, like,
comes through.
Which I think is an attribute that you need if you want to.
I think it's amazing how he balances. Okay, and this, I mean, listen, if he gets the right opportunity, he's definitely a pro, because he balances being humble and being a competitor, like a fierce competitor. That is hard for people to balance, like.
Right, because if you do it too much one way, you come off as cocky, arrogant, and everybody kind of like, whatever. Mm-hmm. Like, if people knew, like, it's the stuff you say to yourself, right? Or the stuff you say under your breath that, like I know what he's thinking in his head, like that competitive nature coming out, that fire of what he would love to express outwardly. But that's what fuels him in here. But the fact that he can keep it inside and use it, right, is, I think, what separates guys from being a college player and being an NFL player, right?
I know you're competitive because you took the racket and you fired it.
I'm like, as soon I was like, and I never do it. And then when it slipped out of my hand and went over the net, I was like, oh my
God. I thought someone took a hammer to my shoulder.
Joe was like, oh my God, I think you just killed the game. I was like, I told you it was getting wet. We got to get out of here. It's getting slippery. I was like, oh damn.
I was like, oh man. I was like,
that's a whole different level. But even something like that, like, I would see, like, if you put him on a pickleball court and said, hey, let's try this, like, he would play like once, and it wouldn't be something like he would go back and now he would probably like Google like pickleball, right? And start to do the research and that type of stuff. Cause he was also that type. You heard him talk about it too. And I think our guys that need to hear this, they need to know the off the field stuff that it takes, the studying of more film, right? The knowing your body type of stuff that he embraced in order to take that next step. I mean, you said, listen, a coach doesn't put a guy in multiple positions at that level unless it's somebody that can do it, not only physically, but think about mentally being asked to play safety, linebacker, corner. You heard him say he's like, I was on the edge. I was coming from here. I was coming from that, which all of that stuff at the time feels like, wow, this is a lot. This is whatever. Like, and I'm playing special teams. But now it's like, hey, man, look at what you're doing in the NFL. That is why you are probably signed with the team you were signed with and have an opportunity to play, is because you have and embraced doing all of those intangibles. Because we know in the NFL, it's, you can't be a one-trick pony unless you're literally the tops of the tops.
He loves sports, like just sport. Like, I mean, he may not love every sport, but he enjoys sports. Like, I think that's a big deal because
a competitor, man. Like, he's a competitor but he embraces the other stuff, right?
I think guys who love sport, if you only play one sport your whole life, but you don't necessarily love sports, if all of a sudden the sport you think you love rejects you, maybe your position or something, sometimes those guys bag it in. But guys who love sports, they just love to play, like old school play. So you're basically taking, all right, I'm a quarterback, safety, and you know what? You're going to go play this position now. Okay, wow, all right. Once you embrace it, you go, you know what? This is just playing. This is another thing to play, right? And another thing to learn. And that was, I think what made, there's a lot to learn from, especially the modern athlete. This is a guy that's in the NFL. Like, a lot of guys are like him in the NFL. 3-sport athletes, played another position in high school.
I bet you if you polled a lot of his teammates on, and I guarantee you 90% say they played 2 sports, right? But I bet you a very few, right? And like, he talked about it when hey, and look, what were the 2 states he mentioned first, right? Florida, Texas. Guys on my team from Florida and Texas, right? First thing he said, Florida and Texas, right? Those guys were, they were ahead of me because they did that. They had football year round, right? But what did he say? But he felt, that 3rd sport gave me a little bit of an edge when it came here. So it's a healthy balance, right? So wherever you are, embrace that. And he ran with that, and I think that's what set him up to be, where he's at right now. He can run down on kickoff. He can get on kick return. He can be a gunner. He can do all that stuff. And he talked about, I think the other thing that was great is for guys to, like, when he talked about coming from being a quarterback to that defensive side of the ball, how much that helped him with the quarterback's thinking this, so I can play it this way, or this route combination does this. I know what I would be looking for. I can do this, that type of stuff, where he looked at it, and said, I'm going to use that side to help here. I don't know if guys today do that as much,
Well, there are guys like him, and guys like him probably have great success, and guys who don't have that thought process. This was a great interview because it really gets kids an opportunity to see someone. He didn't go to a Power 5 school.
Holy Cross, Patriot League, man.
Patriot League. He's getting the opportunity at the NFL. Obviously, it's always a tough road, but he has the opportunity there.
Right. And I think that was the thing for me. Right. That was his whole thing was, look, I just want an opportunity.
Yep. And you can, in the very different than high school, where, schools recruit you for different reasons from different places. And
NFL, it's about how many things can you do for me, because we only get 53 of you.
Correct. Unless you are, the quarterback,
right?
Or
Justin Jefferson, right? Or one of these guys receiver. That's those guys.
Right. You got to be able to do. You got to be versatile. Even like linemen. When we used to recruit linemen,
linemen.
We used to look for guys that could, because we would recruit what I would call like the second tier group guys, right? We would look for linemen that could play multiple positions. So
right, just in case.
Yeah, even if they were a tackle, we're like, is he a big enough body to be a guard? Can he move?
Right. Can
They
he
only
snap
carry
if he need to? Can he do this? Can he, what
correct.
can he do? Right. Like, hey, if I'm a system where I'm a 3-back punt team, can he be that personal protector back here? Can he go on the second line of kick return where we're running, pseudo counter on and that type of stuff? Like, guys have to be able to do more. And look, at the end of the day, it really is about versatility, right? So he can do a lot of things and he's been coached up to do a lot of things, but it's also he embraced that opportunity to do it and ran with it. And it's ultimately set him up to where now he's in a great position and, hopefully it works out. But you can also see like, hey, if it doesn't, I'm good. I got a degree from, Holy Cross, so we're good to go.
He reminds me of he played in the NFL for many years as a special teams guy. Remember Vinny was it Churchu, I think it was. He played for Carolina. Played like 8 years, and he was mostly special teams.
And that's the thing. If you develop,
right?
Like, listen, you make the roster. All right, you're a special teams guy. That's your role. Well, things happen all the time. This guy's hurt. That guy's hurt. All of a sudden, now he's the starter. Who knows? Opportunities present themselves when you continue to work and do the right things. So I think it's a credit to him. And I think it's a great lesson for the guys that listen to this or that we're trying to influence and do things that we all want you guys to get those Power 5 offers, but there's another way around it. And if you do these certain things, you can still put yourself in a good situation.
On a different note, with the kids that we're working with, the young guys, man, in 3 weeks, I can't believe. I'm like,
and it's not even a true 3 weeks because a lot of those guys only play once a week.
Yes.
So you're talking once a week for an hour with extreme attention to detail on technique, learning what like some of the little tidbits, the intangibles that a lot of guys might not teach or dive into. And we've seen these kids get better. And we're not talking like, oh, okay, he's getting it. We're talking like, whoa, like on a different level. And then you can also now start to see they get a little bit of confidence to them. And we're talking about guys that are first, second, third grade, right? Like going from like to now, hey, like, oh, hey, coach, like I hitched on that one. Like, okay, dude. Yeah, you did. Good job. Like self-correcting and enjoying themselves.
It really, it's amazing how, they are sponges at that age. So if they can learn it right pretty early.
And then you develop those habits, those good, positive habits that now, even I just think, even like putting them into something like that, where now like we have a structure to each session that we do, right? Like your quarterbacks, you're doing this. When you're coming to receiver, you're doing this. And teaching that type of structure, this is how it's done. This is whatever. Now they go to their other teams and that's what they're expecting, right? So then when they don't get it, they still hold themselves to that and conduct it. And now the people around them start to see it a little bit and say, all right, well, let's do it like him because he seems to be a little bit better than us. So why don't we follow that, right? So not only are you developing skill sets and better players, but you're developing overall like guys, that are going to be your leaders, your captains, the way you want to help conduct practice, right? Like they're going to look at those guys. So, and then you see it with their confidence levels, like, and now they're going to take that and then they're going to turn that into whatever else they want to do. But it really has been an eye-opening experience in these first 3 weeks.
Yeah, it's interesting. It really is. I mean, the receivers, they're starting in a stance. The quarterbacks are developing quickly. Their arms are like all of a sudden now, because they're starting to throw it more correctly, it's like coming out of their hands. The receivers have to catch up because that takes
that's one of the things like we've talked about with the receivers. It's like, hey, dude, you're not sitting in the backyard throwing with daddy, lobbing balls to you now. Like you're legit getting guys like, hey, you got to catch on the move and do what you're supposed to do. And you can see them, even though still, and this is my thing too. Like, look, I don't care if you're dropping passes right now. That's all right. I want you to make sure that the technique that you're going with is going, and you're constantly doing your stance is the same every time. Your takeoff is the same every time. Your action. Now look, and now that all the rest of that stuff will come with time. So now you're teaching them a little bit more, just like humbleness about themselves to, hey, I'm not going to get this right now, but eventually if I keep going and keep going and keep going, I will. And that's tough for these kids because they're young, man, and they're growing up in an age of instant gratification where I need it right now. So they're trusting this process, and now they're learning to be, you know, patient, but also push it at the same time.
There's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. All right. Well, this was a great podcast. I think we should try to get someone on for a few minutes each week.
Yeah, I don't know. We might have screwed up though and set the bar a little high with the first one.
I know we did.
Damn it.
That's all right.
Yeah.
It's gonna come and go. That's how it is. But I think right way to do it, because you know you get to hear a different perspective beyond
totally different, right? Like guys like, oh, he's, you know, you look at it, first off, if you looked at him, you would say like, all right, well, whatever, right? You know, like, I mean, yeah, he's okay. He kind of looks the part, but you wouldn't think he's like an NFL linebacker.
Right.
Like that, right? That guy is on the Colts. Like, yeah, he's wearing number 49 and he's running down with a freaking Johnny U. Here we go.
How tall is he, by the way? 6'1"?
I think he's 6'2" and a half.
Oh, 6. Oh, he's tall. He's tall.
Yeah, I think, yeah, he's taller than, he might actually be, yeah, he's taller than you would think. But he carries it different, you know, because when he was in high school, like he was the long, lean type of whatever. And then when he got there, he's 6'3". So then when he's like, but he was like that 6'3", right? Like 6'2"-ish, whatever. So his speed is obviously like what took him. They were like, whoo, this kid. I mean, and he obviously had a 4.5 on his pro day. Not
6'3",
bad.
230? Yeah.
6'3", 230 running a 4.5 40.
Pretty damn good.
NFL.
Pretty.
And that's a guy who's on the cusp of it, right? Like he's trying to continue to make it, right? Like he's got to work to get where it's at. So, but
all right, well,
awesome. Let's do it.
I'll hit you up. We'll end the podcast. Good one there. Real good one. Great job.
All right, buddy.
All right.